Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show.
What's going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show here on DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter and Facebook for the Daily Racing Form pages. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Today is August the 25th. It is Travers weekend up at Saratoga. If you check the podcast out, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Big weekend. This is the Travers preview show, if you will. We'll dive into all sorts of races up at Saratoga coming up in the latter half of the show. But first, we got to start off and look back and see what happened last weekend, because some big things happened. We saw the Pacific Classic be run. You had Arrogate trying to redeem himself coming out of that just complete dud of a race in the San Diego Handicap. You had a couple of fresh faces that were coming into that spot. And who knew what you were going to get from the big horse? As we see right now, Trevor Denman turning for home. The big horse, he ran, but not as well as we're accustomed to.
At the top of the lane, Collected. Accelerate went a little wide into the turn. Arrogate now is plugging away on the outside. An eighth of a mile to go, and Collected keeps on going. Arrogate is getting going late now. Collected is in front. Arrogate closing on the outside. It's a Bob Baffert 1-2, but Collected going to win it. Collected and Martin Garcia won the Pacific Classic. Arrogate got going late, but had to settle for second.
Collected wins the TVG Pacific Classic. He earns a spot into the Breeders' Cup Classic with that victory. You can take a look at the horse profile right now. Bob Baffert, his hands just continue to get better and better at this point. He's got another legitimate threat. The 1.25 miles, no problem for Collected. The important thing to, I think, discuss about this race as a whole, though, is what it means now for the, let's call it the Classic division going forward, because you have Collected, who now has his spot in. It sounds like all systems are go. Arrogate is going to go. I doubt you're going to see him in a race like the Awesome again. I would assume Bob will just train him right up to the Classic as he did last year coming out of the Travers. You also have Gunrunner, who we'll see next weekend up at Saratoga in the Woodward. That race looks like it could be a bit hungry on paper with the exception of him, and at the same time I can understand entirely why would you be rushing to the window or rushing to send your horse to the gate against Gunrunner at this stage in the game, just because he's a razor sharp, and Saratoga we know is not an issue for him. But going forward now, where does it leave Arrogate? Because we saw the stretch run there. He was a little bit weird with the leads again. And I know there are some folks that are sick of me talking about lead changes. I think it's important, so I'm going to keep talking about it. Get used to it. If you don't like it, turn it off. He was a little bit weird with the lead changes, and that still, to me, I guess going into the race, I was very reluctant to buy into the idea that the horse just didn't like the Del Mar racetrack. Now, after that, I'm kind of thinking there may be something to it, because it's not as though he totally shut it down. It's not like he's not running at all. We saw that. He came with that big finish at the end, and he almost got to Collected. Think about that. That horse, he probably ran his B race. He still almost beat Collected. He earned a 113 buyer or 114 buyer. And it's not to take anything away from the winner. Collected's a legitimately talented horse. Baffert's done a fantastic job with him, and he has got to be viewed as a major threat in the Breeders' Cup Classic because he's proven over this racing surface. But Arrogate, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a scenario where we could be looking back and saying, last year there was a horse that went out there, ran the races, and she got beat a couple times on the square by a legitimate foe, and everyone thought that, hey, maybe she's over the hill, and she still had one big one left in her, and that was in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. I'm talking obviously about Beholder, where it looked like maybe she was a little bit over the top. Maybe she wasn't quite what she used to be. A lot of people are saying maybe Arrogate's not quite what he was last year. Maybe the race over in Dubai took a little bit too much out of him, and we're not ever going to see that same horse ever again. Maybe we don't. But I won't be shocked at all if we get to Breeders' Cup Saturday and this horse goes off at 2-1, and maybe he's the co-favorite with Collected, with Gunrunner, with anyone else, and we'll talk about a couple other names here momentarily. I'm not going to be surprised at all if we get one more big effort out of him and he goes out on top in style. 1.25 miles is always going to be his friend. The thing that I find most fascinating about this horse is he is still going to outstay everyone. The 1.25 miles is going to be his friend more than anyone else's. If it were me, and it's not, but if it were, I would ride the hair off the horse for the opening 1/4 mile. I would make sure he makes the front. Unless someone wants to go 45, and at that point, you know what, they're not going to be able to stay 1.25 miles. But if there's a mediocre or tepid pace signed on, even like we had Saturday afternoon, it's not that they were going slow on the front end with Collected, but certainly wasn't fast. I would do everything in my power to get to the front with Arrogate because I know I know the distance is not going to be an issue for him. Whereas some of these other horses, maybe they don't truly want 10 furlongs. They can get it, but maybe they don't truly want it. This horse wants every bit of it and then some. I would do everything in my power. And I don't know that I would go as far as my friend Nick Luck, who brought up the idea of maybe this horse needs blinkers. I don't know if I would go as far as an equipment change. I think I would just change the way that he's ridden. And you saw Mike get into him a little bit out of the gate there, wanting to make sure that he was forwardly placed. I would go the next step. I would make sure that he is on the lead. I would go guns blazing from the jump. And again, if it turns into a staying contest, I know I'm going to be able to outstay anyone else. So what does it mean for the older males in general? We saw Cupid come back 2 days ago, Wednesday afternoon at Del Mar, and he was He was all right, not great, nothing spectacular. I wonder now we're going to see him in the Awesome again, I would assume, and then possibly you see him in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Maybe you see him in a race like the Breeders' Cup Mile. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But I think this really means that all eyes will be on Gunrunner next Saturday. And if Shaman Ghost, he's going to miss the race because he had a little bit of a procedure, I believe. If Gunrunner goes out and replicates what he did in the Whitney, I think a lot of people are going to look at it, and not just because of some sort of a poll like we saw with the NTRA Top 10, where now all of a sudden Gunrunner is number 1 and Arrogate's number 2. I'm not going to waste my time with that, or right now anyway, we won't talk about it. If Gunrunner goes out and does what he's supposed to do next Saturday in the Woodward, I think a lot of people are going to look at him and say he's the rightful favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Not a horse like Collected, and not a horse like Arrogate coming into the race in the fashion that he is. I think it's going to be a fascinating stretch going up to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Let's just knock on wood. Let's hope they all get there happy, sound, ready to go, and may the best horse win. But if you're writing Arrogate off, I think you're making a bit of a mistake thus far. We're going to take a quick break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we got to go back and see how we did last weekend. Not going to include the Pacific Classic because we already talked about it. I picked Accelerate. He didn't run very well. But there's 2 other races that we'll go over. One from Saratoga, one from Del Mar, and then we'll get ready. The back half of the show, it's all handicap and getting you ready for Travers Saturday up at the Spa tomorrow afternoon. Stay with us, the Matt Bernier Show.
North America's first yearling sale for horses with turf appeal is coming to Fasig-Tipton. Selected yearlings by the nation's top turf sires. The Fasig-Tipton Turf Showcase presented by Woodbine Racetrack, September 10th in Lexington, Kentucky. Where will you be?
Luxair Jets is excited to announce the new, most convenient way to fly nonstop from Lexington to historic Saratoga Springs throughout the racing meet. We are now offering exclusive group packages on our luxurious private jets. Each package offers a once-in-a-lifetime experience that you can share with your friends, family, or business partners. Call for pricing and availability.
Coming up this summer, it's Spa Babies presented by WinStar Farm. Every Wednesday through Sunday during the Saratoga meeting, Nicole Russo and I will analyze the best 2-year-old races at the spa. We'll go beyond the past performances and discuss pedigree, trainer patterns, workouts, and more. It's Spa Babies presented by WinStar Farm every Wednesday through Sunday at video.drf.com.
12:08 on the East, 9:08 on the West, the Matt Bernier Show, DRF TV. If you're watching social media, whether it's on the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, or if you're watching on Facebook, the Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page, thank you for doing so. You can always leave comments, whatever you would like to do. Thumbs up, thumbs down, anything in between. As we always do, we go back and we take a look and see how we did the weekend prior. We're going to start off, and again, I talked about it right in that opening segment. The Pacific Classic, I liked Accelerate. I thought he was a little bit of an intriguing sort of alternative. He just couldn't cut the mustard. He wasn't quite there. I would have preferred him, and I know it probably was a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation. I would have probably preferred him being the one on the front end as opposed to Collected. Maybe he runs a little bit differently, but I would assume that from here, they're going to probably throttle back and target a race like the Dirt Mile as opposed to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Hey, again, hats off to Collected. Really nice horse, really nice effort. And again, Arrogate, I think you're making a mistake if you write him off, but I thought he was a little bit of a vulnerable favorite going into that spot, just based on what we had seen. I still really like the horse, still one of my favorites of all time. But there was another race out at Del Mar. And this one bothered me just a little bit more. The Del Mar handicap, I thought a vulnerable favorite going in anyway, and this horse didn't ultimately go off favored, was Ashley Love Sugar. Thought maybe he was a little bit over the top. Maybe his best days were behind him. I thought the most likely winner and the horse that I picked and that I bet quite a bit on was It's in the Post and Trevor Denman. They turned for home.
Prime attraction, the long shot running a huge one. He will on the outside, and Hunt now gets a run at the rail. Hunt in the white cap down at the rail is coming fast, maybe best of all. A late run from It's in the Post, absolutely flying. Hunt gets the lead. It's in the Post at the rail, coming like a rocket. Hunt gonna get there. Hunt has won it. Hunt beat it.
Hunt prevails in the Del Mar handicap. A beautiful ride, a beautiful trip for that horse. He is in razor sharp form. And it sounds like the Breeders' Cup Turf is on the docket for that horse, and I have no reason to argue. I didn't think a mile and an eighth would be his friend. Certainly didn't think a mile and 3/8 was going to be his friend, but the way that he finished there, I have no reason to think that a mile and a half is not going to be within his scope. I have to say, at the same time, though, if I needed to take one of the top 2 runners coming out of that race, it's going to be It's in the Post every single time. I'm not entirely sure why he was as far back as he was. This is a horse that has a little bit of tactical speed. I was hoping he would be sort of breathing right down Hunt's neck. Unfortunately, he wasn't. He was much farther back. He got shuffled. The first turn was a bit of a disaster. I thought he ran his eyeballs out. I'm not suggesting he's going to be a horse that you really need to look at as a major win candidate for a race like the Breeders' Cup Turf. There is the local prep at Santa Anita that I believe would be a logical next spot for this horse. It's in the Post. Again, I'm not saying that I'm going to be picking him. To me, he's very, very interesting in the Breeders' Cup Turf. If they choose to go there, you're going to get a mile and a half. You're going to get Del Mar. I know he's never won at Del Mar, but clearly you got to always look at those sort of statistics with a grain of salt as well. I believe going into the race most recently on Saturday, he was 0 for 7 at Del Mar. Well, keep in mind, he had been running at a mile and a 16th and a mile and an eighth and all those races. He's a different animal ever since that Jeff Mullins stretched him out, and I think that's something that you got to keep in the back of your mind when you handicap any of these kind of races. I think he's still very, very talented. I think he's a sneaky sort of underneath kind of horse, and who knows, maybe I get aggressive, maybe I get bold and pick him as far as the Breeders' Cup Turf is concerned, and that's if he gets there, and that's if they decide to go on with him. But disappointing result for me anyway, because I did like him quite a bit. I thought he was the most likely winner, and I can argue that he ran the best race in the Del Mar handicap. But again, hats off to Phil D'Amato and company with Hunt. Let's go to Saratoga, the Alabama. This is basically the 3-year-old filly counterpart to tomorrow's main event, the Grade 1 Travers. It was a wide open race going into it. You could go a million different ways. I thought a vulnerable favorite was Unchained Melody, and I thought a live long shot in the horse that I picked in the race was Mopetism. Larry Comas, they turn for home.
Holy Helena and Mopetism in their end of the stretch, and Elate has taken the lead. It is Elate coming to the final furlong in the Alabama, putting away It Is Well. Salty runs through an opening on the inside, up into third. Lockdown is fourth, and then Actress on the outside, but Elate is clear. Elate has moved away to a 4-length lead in mid-stretch. It Is Well clings to second, and then it's Salty. Elate has won the Alabama. A strong win here by 5.5 lengths. It was close for second.
Elate is finally following through on that promise that she showed as a 2-year-old for Bill Mott when she broke her maiden just so spectacularly on debut, something that doesn't normally happen for Mott. And again, that's a handicapping angle I brought up 2 weeks ago out at Equestricon. Look for things that are a little bit peculiar, for outfits that you know pretty well. You know what their MO is, what their game is. When they do something that kind of goes against the grain, all positive, something to just kind of throw in the back of your mind. We're going to see tomorrow afternoon or Sunday afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon? I don't remember. The Shared Belief. I think it's tomorrow. Gormley is going to come back. Part of the reason I liked Gormley as much as I did in the front runner was because the horse showed speed in his debut, something that John Sheriff's horses don't normally do. That's not the huge. That's not the MO. Elate. Bill Mott doesn't generally win first out unless maybe they come from, they're a horse coming out of, a 2-year-old in training sort of situation, and then all of a sudden they are going to fire a little bit more likely than what his normal sort of regiment, his normal program is. They normally improve as they get some racing. So Elate, there was a lot of hype about her early on. She's finally starting to follow through. Big effort there in the Alabama. Unfortunate with Unchained Melody. I believe Rosario rode her and he took care of her, did what he was supposed to do. She just didn't seem right on the far turn. I believe everything sounds like it's okay and there was no real issues. I was a little bit concerned about the distance with her and she stopped quite badly. I don't know if it was distance or something else. We know she's better than that, obviously, though. And Mopetism, she was in a little bit tough. I thought it was a scenario where I didn't love anyone. She was going to be a giant, giant price. I think she was in that 20-to-1 range, 25-to-1. And she ran like a 25-to-1 shot, unfortunately. But again, these are the kind of races that when you don't have a strong opinion, don't settle for a short number. Try to get a little bit aggressive. Try to get a little bit cute and make some sort of make a case for a bit of an off-the-wall kind of horse. Sometimes it'll work. And guess what? When it works, it pays for the times that it doesn't. We're going to take a break. When we come back here on the show, we're bringing it home. All handicapping from Saratoga going forward. We have 1, 2, 3 races culminating in the feature, the main event, the Grade 1 Travers for 3-year-olds. Stay with us, the Matt Bernier Show.
Absolutely sensational! California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Well, the amazing thing about our work was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front.
In the East, 917 the West, the Matt Bernier Show, DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter and Facebook for the daily racing form. Let's do it. Clap it up a little bit, folks. We're here. We're here. It's Travers weekend. My goodness, it's a Breeders' Cup in August, basically. I like I personally am a fan of these sort of days. I know a lot of people, you can go back and forth. Some people don't like stacking these cards. Some people like spreading it out a little bit more. I love whenever we can have a day where you get all of, or the majority, the best, whatever division it may be. If you like fillies that sprint on the dirt, if you like horses that go long on the turf, if you like the 3-year-olds, you got everything that you could possibly ask for tomorrow afternoon. Saratoga Springs, New York. Let's dive into it. We're going to go over 3 races. We're going to go over the Ballerina, the H-Allen Jerkins, and the Travers. Let's start off with the Ballerina, though. It's not a big field. You've only got a field of 7 signed on in here. And let's take a look at the field if we could. On the far right side, those are my odds, but I'm considering the value line. Not a morning line. It's a value line. I would need X amount sort of odds if I were going to consider playing these horses on the win end. Multi-race, obviously, you got to get a little bit cute. But let's go right in post position order for those of you that are listening. Bird at the Wire, 24-1. Curlin's Approval, 5-1. Paula's Silver Lining, 7-2. By the Moon, 6-1. Karina Mia, 6-1. Distinta, 10-1. And Highway Star, 4-1. I think this is a really, really fun race. I don't necessarily trust some of the shorter prices in here, and I don't want to say that I don't trust them. It's just I don't think they're bulletproof. I think a horse like Paula's Silver Lining, who I think is the most likely winner. We're going to take a look at her most recent start. This is her victorious in the Honorable Miss. Now you see she's out there, and I have nothing but respect and admiration for Paula's Silver Lining. She's rock solid. You see on the inside right now battling with Finley's Lucky Charm. Finley's Lucky Charm is tenacious. You see on the outside By the Moon. Probably the reason I'm down on By the Moon is because I had her this day, and I thought there wasn't any real excuse. How often do you see 3 fillies or mares, or any horses for that matter, across the wire, and how often is it a fantastic race? It's just a situation where at the prices that they figured to be, I don't love them. I do think Paula's Silver Lining is the most likely winner, though. We talk about Karina Mia. I didn't love her return in the Shiny, and I thought it was fine. Just kind of nondescript, blah. She can obviously move forward. This is going to be your second start for Chad. I wouldn't be surprised at all if she ran well, and even if she won. I think she's going to be an underlay because she's a name, and people love names. They get used to betting the same sort of horses. How about a horse that I don't think gets the credit she deserves? And you know what? Maybe she's going to be overmatched tomorrow afternoon. That's a live long shot, and it's the horse that I'm picking in the race. We're going to take a look at the Ogden Phipps. And in this race, there's a horse in third. She's all out right now in the green and white. Her name is Highway Star. She's going to angle out. And you know what? She's going to stay on. And okay, she doesn't finish any better than what you're looking at right now. But you see Karina Mia is behind her. And the two horses in front of her, all they are paid-up subscriber who won that race up at Saratoga by 100 lengths, as well as Songbird, who we will see in the personal ensign tomorrow afternoon. We know who Songbird is. I love Highway Star, the fact that she wants to go out there and she wants to beat you. I think she's a live long shot. She's 10-1 on the morning line. You're going to get every penny of that 10-1, I would assume. She's my pick in here. I'm going to have a lot of things tied in with her with multi-race wagers. I think she's a very honest New York bred. I think her conditioner's done a fantastic job with her. It's also fascinating. We see so often, you go through the PPs, if you're ever just looking for little nuances and peculiarities, look at this filly. Her two-turn races are not good. That's where she just does not accelerate. She's no good there. All of her one-turn races, that was her first loss. And she lost to Songbird and paid-up subscriber. Otherwise, she's unbeaten going one turn. I think this is a softer field. That Ogden Phipps has come back ultra live. I like Highway Star in the Ballerina. Let's move on to the H. Allen Jerkins, formerly known as the King's Bishop. It's a grade 1 for 3-year-olds. They're going 7/8 of a mile on the main track. Let's take a look at that field if we could. This thing is an absolute war on paper. In post position order, Practical Joke is the number 1, 3-1. Takaful 9-2. Tale of Silence 24-1. Wild Shot 19-1. Ann Arbor Eddie 49-1. Phi Beta Express 19-1. Coalfront 5-1. No Dozing 19-1. American Anthem 4-1. This is a fascinating race. I would not argue with anyone that gave me any one of 4 or 5 horses in this spot. But I think it's an interesting one where if you don't entirely trust some of the shorter numbers in there, you do have interesting alternatives. I think the most likely winner in the horse that I'm picking in the race is Practical Joke. We're going to take a look at his run in the Dwyer. This was the last time he went one turn. You see him down on the inside in the red cap and those familiar Klarovich silks. He's going to finally get out into the clear, and when Rosario produces him, he explodes. This is what he's wanted to do all along. I'm surprised at the amount of people that have been fans, particularly Chris Larmy. Chris Larmy, fantastic handicapper. Many of you know him through the contest scene over at publichandicapper.com. He thinks the turn back is a mistake for this horse. He was tweeting about that earlier today. I think it's the complete opposite. I think this is what he's wanted all along. That's the beautiful part about this game. We can agree to disagree, and we'll find out tomorrow when we put our dollars down. I think this is what he's wanted all along. I think he was, I don't want to say best, but you can make a case that he was best in the Haskell. Had he not gotten stuck behind horses, maybe he's the one that gets the job done. There's a part of me that thinks that he ran as well as he did in the Haskell simply on class alone. I think you can make the case that he's one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 most talented 3-year-olds that we have. I just don't think he's been doing what he wants to do. I think this is it right here at the one-turn race. He should get a beautiful setup, plenty of speed signed on in this race. And among the speeds, if you're looking for a live long shot, I think Phi Beta Express would be the one to blow up the tote. It's going to be a giant price. Danny Gargan, if you're not familiar, get familiar, because Danny Gargan is winning everything, it seems. His barn, I think he's clipping at about 24% up at the Spa, and that's on par with how he was finishing the Belmont meet over the spring. This horse is legitimately fast. He's got a lot of gas early on, and I can't help but think that we're going to have a scenario where Takaful is going to go from the 2 post, Phi Beta Express is going to go, Coalfront is going to be right there, and then in behind, slightly off to the outside, you're going to have American Anthem, who I love, and I think he's a very, very talented horse. I picked him second. And then just in behind them, you're going to have Practical Joke. If those 2 or 3 horses throw it down early, I think it starts to be a bit of a stagger fest up front. If Rosario can get Practical Joke out, I think he comes with his run. But the reason I bring up Phi Beta Express, if for some reason he clears to the front, and we have seen in the past on big days, you can have these little weird biases. We can be a little bit speed friendly. We can be a little bit inside. If all of a sudden nobody else wants to go and Phi Beta Express clears off to the front, don't be surprised if this horse gets brave, because I'm telling you, visually, he has been awesome in each of his past 2 starts, and they happen to be the 2 starts since he has been transferred over to the Danny Gargan barn. So, live long shot for me in the Allen Jerkins is the horse Phi Beta Express for Gargan. Most likely winner of my pick is Practical Joke. Drum roll, please. Here we are. This is the main event, the Grade 1 Travers. $1.25 million is the purse. They're going to go 1.25 miles. 3-year-olds, let's take a look at the field. Field of 12. You can go 15 different ways in a 12-horse field. The number 1 is Cloud Computing, the Preakness champion for Chad Brown. I picked him in the Jim Dandy. I picked him in the Preakness, and he just did not run. I've made him 12-1. I never thought in a million years I would be saying after the Preakness that I think this horse should be 12-1 in the Travers. Giuseppe the Great for Nick Zito. Good to see Nick in a grade 1. 32-1. West Coast for Bob Baffert. 7-1. Tapper the Belmont champion for Todd Pletcher and Jose Ortiz. 7-1. Good Samaritan. Who knows what he could be, but he is the Jim Dandy winner, and he comes into this race as one of the likely favorites. I made him 6-1. Gervin, the winner of the Haskell for Robbie Alvarado and Joe Sharp, 6-1. Always Dreaming, your Kentucky Derby champion for Pletcher and Velasquez, 10-1. Looking at Lee, 32-1 as we turn the page to numbers 9 through 12. Number 9 is McCracken, 16-1, the runner-up, losing that tough photo finish in the Haskell. IRAP, 6-1 for Doug O'Neill and Mario Gutierrez. Gunnavera, 49-1, and Fayek, 49-1, Rachel Alexander's little brother. So lots to talk about in this race, and we're going to bring you right home. We got 5 more minutes in the show. Cloud Computing, Always Dreaming, Good Samaritan. What do you do with those horses? Cloud Computing and Always Dreaming for me were just so bad that I can't take anything too short on them. That's why I have them both at 12 and 10-1. The interesting thing is Always Dreaming could be loose. We could be looking at a carbon copy of the Jim Dandy, and if you think that the racetrack was just weird that day, which I kind of do, I'm not fully buying into the inside. I'm more inclined to buy into inside than speed. But I wonder if the race itself was just weird. Maybe the horses didn't handle the track. If you believe that you're going to get a tighter Always Dreaming this time around, he is a legitimate gate-to-wire threat. The 10 furlongs is not going to be a problem for him. Just remember that. We may be getting a fire alarm, which we had heard earlier on. So just bear with me. If all of a sudden there's strobe lights going on, I'm not having a party. It's too early to be going down that road. But anyway, back to the handicapping. Always Dreaming, there's a legitimate chance that he could be a gate-to-wire threat in this spot. If you believe you're going to get a better version of him here for the Travers, beware. Let's talk about Good Samaritan. Look, fantastic horse. And we always know that he was talented. You just didn't know if he was going to be able to step on dirt. Now, he's going to get a more favorable pace scenario, obviously, but if you go through into Formulator and you look at the incremental splits, he ran it like a turf race. Each one of his quarters was faster. He picked it up as it went on, and it just kind of felt like a staggerfest down the lane for the other 4 horses. So I think he is one of the likely win candidates. He's one of the A's that I will have in all multis, but I want him to prove it to me again. And the distance, the good thing for him is 10 furlongs, going to be right in his wheelhouse. Let's go to Tapper. Tapper, I don't have much really to knock about this horse. He's entering with the highest last out figure. I believe it's a 103 buyer. He has Todd Pletcher in his corner. Pletcher has a fantastic formulator stat. And if I can just filibuster here momentarily, maybe I can pull it up and give it to you guys as the computer loads. It's one of those things where Pletcher, obviously, most of his numbers are very, very good. As far as Tapper is concerned, past 5 years, 61 to 180 days, dirt route graded stakes at Saratoga. I'll repeat that. Past 5 years, dirt, 61 to 180 days, route graded stakes races at Saratoga, 4 for 7, 6 in the money with a 350 ROI. A lot of people question, why would you train this horse right up to the Travers? Clearly, Todd has a history of doing this and doing it successfully. Let's talk about the Haskell. I don't think McCracken wants 10 furlongs. I think he's going to be a horse that will do best going shorter. Right now, if I could make a future wager on the Cigar Mile, I think McCracken would probably be the one. He or Practical Joke, one of the two. Gervin, I think Gervin is very, very talented. And you know what? We're going to take a look at the Haskell right now. We have the replay of that. You see these horses right now. Gervin's coming on the outside. He's following McCracken. McCracken made the first run. You also see Practical Joke in between in the red cap. Gervin, I think, just handles this distance better. He got his final 1/8 of a mile in 12-3, whereas McCracken finished in 12-4, I believe. I know it doesn't sound like much. Keep in mind, we're dealing with an extra 1/8 of a mile here on Saturday afternoon. I think that's going to be a very, very important thing. Anybody that wants to say that the Haskell was just slow and they don't like it, your prerogative, your opinion. I'm not going to argue with that. That's your choice. Interesting horse, I think, that we need to discuss and consider is IRAP. IRAP has looked like an entirely different animal as more and more time has gone on. He's just gotten much, much more professional. I'm guilty of wanting these horses to be superstars and professional from day one. Well, guess what? Some horses, maybe they just need more time than others, and maybe IRAP fits the bill because he's always had the pedigree. He's Tisnow. He's a half to Speightstown. And guess what? His 2 most recent races were both really, really good. You look at almost any speed figure, doesn't matter if it's Beyer, Time Form, Briz, anything. He is one of the fastest horses in this race. I picked him second in here behind the horse that I ultimately landed on for the Travers. I'm sticking with Gervin. I think it's a scenario where maybe last time was the time, but I think he's a live long shot in this spot here just simply because I can't imagine him going off at anything too short. I think that probably 8-1 range sounds about right. That's what he went off at in the Haskell. I think you're going to get something similar to that tomorrow afternoon in the Travers. I think the distance is going to be beneficial for him. And I just have enough questions about other horses. Just for what it's worth, though, in order, I went 6, 10, 5, 4. That would be Gervin over IRAP, over Good Samaritan, over Taprit. The 3 A's that I will likely be using in multi-race wagers will be Gervin, IRAP, and Good Samaritan. 12:30 here on the East Coast, 9:30 on the West Coast. This has been the Matt Bernier Show. Thank you if you have watched on live.drf.com, livestream.com, or the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle, or the Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page. If you check it out, podcast version. Again, this thing goes up this afternoon. Will be up within the next 2 hours or so. The boys will have it up. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. You've got a bunch of ways to find this show. As we always do, we close these shows out on Friday, leading into Out of the Gate. We will do that momentarily. If you will be up at the Spa tomorrow afternoon, feel free to come and find us. NBC, they're going to be running the show tomorrow. I believe it's going to be on the big network, 4:30 Eastern. I don't have to work, though. I'm not going to be on. I'm going to be working. I'll be posting on DRF Live. I'm going to be up there with my buddies. So if you see us playing pitch in the morning, playing cards, come on over, say hello. We'll be up there at the Spa starting this evening. Best of luck wherever you're playing, however you're playing. Enjoy the Travers. Safe trips to everyone. Hopefully everything goes well and we have a good day of racing. 73 and sun. How can you beat it up at the Spa? Without further ado, this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Best of luck.